Ukraine has just given Russia a brutal taste of its own medicine. Overnight on September 12th, Kyiv unleashed one of its biggest drone attacks to date, striking numerous sites across Russia, including the capital, Moscow. Several locations were left burning, and Russian air defenses, despite their boasts of world-class technology, failed to stop the swarms. Russian officials and media rushed to claim that 221 drones were intercepted, but evidence on the ground shows that many slipped through the cracks. Explosions echoed across multiple regions, fires raged at industrial sites, and videos captured by ordinary Russians exposed what the Kremlin would rather hide: chaos and destruction inside its own borders. The main focus of the attack was in the Smolensk, Leningrad, and Moscow regions. Smolensk, bordering Belarus, saw dramatic fires at a Lukoil facility. Local Governor Vasily Anokin tried to downplay the incident, speaking vaguely about air defenses repelling drones without mentioning the oil facility at all. But videos from residents told another story: towering clouds of smoke, glowing fires on the horizon, and panicked voices as explosions thundered overhead. Once again, Russian officials tried to cover up the truth, but the footage left little doubt that Ukraine had hit its mark. Further north in the Leningrad region near St. Petersburg, drones struck the Primorsk port, Russia's largest oil loading port on the Baltic Sea. Flames broke out on at least one vessel docked there, confirmed even by regional governor Alexander Drozdenko. He claimed that around 30 drones were destroyed across the area, but admitted that debris fell into populated towns like Tosno, Izmino, and Pokrovskoye. Even more telling, St. Petersburg's international airport, Pulkovo, the second busiest in all of Russia, had to shut down temporarily, with dozens of flights canceled or diverted. This disruption is becoming increasingly common. Back in July, hundreds of flights across multiple Russian airports were grounded after a separate wave of Ukrainian drones forced emergency shutdowns. Sheremetyevo in Moscow, Strigino in Nizhny Novgorod, and Pulkovo in St. Petersburg all saw chaos, with close to 300 flights disrupted in a single evening. These incidents highlight how Ukraine's drone warfare strategy is now targeting not just military and industrial assets, but also Russia's sense of normalcy, disrupting civilian life and exposing the Russian population to the reality of war. Independent outlets like Astra reported that residents in the Leningrad region described the September 12th attack as one of the largest since the war began. Their Telegram posts, accompanied by chilling videos of explosions and night skies lit up with fire, gave an unfiltered glimpse of what the Kremlin prefers to conceal. Perhaps the most embarrassing development for Moscow was that drones also appeared in the skies, directly over the capital. Mayor Sergei Sobyanin said that 9 were shot down and that emergency crews were dispatched to deal with wreckage. But true to Russia's pattern of secrecy, he provided no information about damage or specific strike locations. Social media channels told a different story, reporting blasts in Mozhaisk and Dedovsk, both just outside Moscow. That strongly suggests that, despite Russian Defense Ministry claims of widespread interceptions, many drones got through. The ministry insisted that 85 drones were destroyed in Bryansk, 42 in Smolensk, 28 in Leningrad, 18 in Kaluga, 14 in Novgorod, and 9 more in Moscow and Oryol, along with others in Belgorod, Tula, and Kursk. But with over a dozen regions under attack simultaneously, this was one of the most extensive drone strikes Russia has ever faced. And that's the point. What Russia inflicts on Ukraine, almost nightly, vast swarms of drones and missiles, raining down without warning, has now been brought back home. In Ukrainian cities, people live under constant fear of the next strike, with air defense crews on permanent alert. This time, Russia was the one scrambling to respond, and the evidence suggests it wasn't ready. This failure is striking given the Kremlin's endless boasts about its military might. Russia spends billions each year on tanks, armored vehicles, and especially air defense systems like the S-400 and S-500, which it touts as among the most advanced in the world. It claims to have cutting-edge radar capable of spotting even low-flying threats. And yet, with cities ablaze and airports closed, those defenses clearly weren't enough. For Moscow, the symbolism cuts deep. The capital, normally portrayed as untouchable and far removed from the front lines, was shown to be vulnerable. It's not the first time drones have reached the Moscow region, but never on such a large scale. Meanwhile, Russia has pummeled Kyiv relentlessly since the start of the invasion. Only days before this Ukrainian counterstrike, Moscow launched its own record-setting assault on Ukraine. More than 800 drones and missiles in a single wave. 4 people were killed, more than 40 wounded, and among the victims were a young mother and her baby. Apartment buildings burned, explosions echoed across Kyiv, and residents once again had to flee for shelter. President Volodymyr Zelensky condemned the strikes, saying, "Such killings, especially now when genuine diplomacy could have started long ago, are deliberate crimes that only prolong the war." He promised to strengthen Ukraine's defenses with the help of allies, including new cooperation with France. Russia, on the other hand, seems obsessed with offense, constantly escalating the scale of its attacks. Hundreds of drones at a time, repeated missile barrages, and costly ground assaults along the front lines, all with limited success. It even recently struck beyond Ukraine's borders, sending drones into Polish airspace and forcing NATO member Poland to intercept them. Warsaw later revealed that the drones appeared to be heading toward Rzeszów Airport, a critical hub for Western aid to Ukraine. NATO officials warned that the incursion was deliberate, and European leaders like Germany's defense minister called it an intentional provocation. Zelensky agreed, warning that this kind of escalation, if unchecked, sets a dangerous precedent for all of Europe. It was not just one drone that could be called an accident, but at least 8 strike drones aimed toward Poland. An extremely dangerous precedent for Europe. Whether there will be further steps depends entirely on the coordination and strength of the response. Ironically, Russia's fixation on attacking abroad may have blinded it to its own vulnerabilities. With so much money and manpower devoted to offense, its defenses were neglected. Ukraine spotted the gaps and exploited them. This September 12th strike was no accident. It was the product of months of careful planning. Time and again, Ukraine has targeted the weak spots in Russia's defensive network, radar stations, missile launchers, command centers. Back in June of last year, a U.S.-supplied HIMARS strike destroyed an S-400 system in Belgorod, knocking out launchers and a command post. In August 2024, Ukrainian forces damaged 4 more S-400 launchers in Crimea and even sank a submarine. More recently, on September 9th, Ukraine's intelligence directorate struck 2 radar stations in Crimea, a Podlet, low-altitude radar, and an RLMM module from a Nebo-M system. A week earlier, another radar tied to an S-300 was destroyed. Each successful hit blinded Russia a little more, leaving the skies open for Ukrainian drones to slip through. Russia's strategy has relied on sheer intensity, saturating Ukraine with as many drones and missiles as possible, regardless of accuracy. The result is devastating for civilians, but often militarily wasteful, striking apartment blocks or empty fields instead of weakening Ukraine's armed forces. Ukraine, meanwhile, has taken the opposite approach. Its strikes are precise and surgical, aimed at targets that matter: oil facilities, radar stations, air defense launchers, ports, and supply hubs. This not only inflicts economic and strategic damage but also paves the way for larger future strikes. That's why the attacks on Smolensk, Leningrad, and Moscow were possible. They were the culmination of a methodical campaign to dismantle Russia's defenses piece by piece. And if Russia continues to prioritize offense over defense, more gaps will open, leaving key assets, ports, airfields, and factories increasingly exposed. Ukraine is also rapidly improving its own arsenal. Alongside its homegrown drones, it has unveiled new long-range missiles like the Long Neptune, Sapsan, and Flamingo. These weapons extend Kyiv's reach even further. And if Russia is already struggling to defend against drones, its chances against swarms of cruise and ballistic missiles look even bleaker. For Putin, this is a nightmare scenario. His country has poured resources into offensive strikes meant to terrorize Ukraine, but now Russians themselves are watching fires burn on their own soil. For years, the Kremlin reassured its people that the war was distant, confined to foreign lands. But this drone strike proved otherwise. The conflict has reached Moscow's skies and St. Petersburg's airports, and it's only likely to intensify from here. Ukraine has shown that it can strike deep inside Russia, not by mimicking Moscow's indiscriminate brutality against civilians, but by hitting the targets that truly weaken its enemy. This strategy is steadily shifting the balance proving that Kyiv can play both defense and offense with increasing skill. And for all Russia's bravado about its mighty armed forces, its high-tech radars and its supposedly impenetrable air defenses, the September 12th attack revealed the truth. Ukraine has found the cracks in the Kremlin's armor and is widening them with every strike.